I am Teah Woodward, an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up, located in Vancouver, Washington in the United States. And today I am here to demonstrate. I've got two cards. They're both fun folds. They're very, very similar to each other. And I'm going to be using Trimming the Tree. And the reason I've chosen this particular stamp set for this week today is because there is a promotion going on right now called Perfect Partners. And so this stamp set in the annual catalog on page, 43, doesn't have any dies. But there's a promotion going on right now called Perfect Partners. There are 6 stamp sets that didn't have dies that for just the month of September, they have dies. And this is one of those stamp sets. And look at all the dies that are included. There's a ton of dies. So I've got 2 pretty simple cards just so that I can demonstrate some of what is available to you. I'm just going to tell you really quick what the other stamp sets are that are part of this Perfect Partners. They're only available with dies through the end of September. Okay, that's the key that you need to take away. This is an actionable item. You don't want to wait. Because today's already the 19th, I believe. The Apple Blossom, or the Apple Harvest stamp set. Fresh cut flowers. This birthday piggy, that one's been pretty popular. The Trimming the Tree, Yeti to Party, and Waterfall Canyon. Okay, this is the only one that I got because when I found out about this promotion, I had already filled up my demonstrating schedule, and so I didn't have a lot of wiggle room. So I only added one that kind of fit with my general schedule. So that's what I've got going on today. And there are some other things, but I will tell you about those while I'm demonstrating. So I'm just gonna go ahead and turn my camera down and get started. So excuse me as there we go. So here are the 2 cards, and I'm just gonna get my camera set up here. Let's see, something got twisted. There we go. Pretty straight. So here are the 2 cards. They're both fun folds. I used mini glue dots to hold them down while I was photographing. Let me take those out. I meant to do that before we went live. So here's this card. It does this. And then this card, very similar, but not exactly the same. So this one uses, there's one less layer, a little bit less die cutting. And this one, I think I had 2 mini glue dots on. I did. There we go. Those were only for the sake of me photographing. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's the second card. And this one has, you can see a little bit of extra DSP, but there's less layers in general. So very, very similar. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with this card, and I'm going to change it up just a little bit from what I've done here, but not a lot. So for the Designer Series paper, I have pulled this from the Painted Christmas 12 by 12 Designer Series paper series. Obviously series, I just said that twice. What I recommend is to go on to stampinup.com, pull up Painted Christmas, and you can look at each of the papers individually. This is the one that I was focusing on today. And there's the other side, and I almost used that other side today, but I ended up just going with this, and I'm actually quite happy with this. Okay, so our card base is 8.5 by 5.5, but we are scored at 2 1/8 and 4 1/4. And I am going to take my bone folder and burnish that. Now, normally I take everything and I worry about getting this edge lined up before I do the burnishing, but because this piece is going to fold back, it actually isn't going to matter. So I'm just going to go ahead and burnish. And then I'm going to fold this back. I've got this turned upside down. I shouldn't do that. Sorry. Don't want to confuse anybody. Okay, so here's my side fold. And then I'm turning this piece back and giving that a burnish as well. Okay? Then we have, get my cheat sheet out here. So this piece is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I'll take my designer series paper and I'm just going to adhere that. Some people call these a modified Z-fold card. I don't know, the Z-folds that I normally call a Z-fold are a little bit more involved. These were more simple, so I'm just calling them a fun fold. Center your designer series paper. I like to use the liquid adhesive. So that I have a little bit more time to wiggle everything around. Now I am going to go ahead and attach this to this front flap right now. And I'm going to be careful to only add adhesive to the back of one side of this piece. Because if I were to put it on both sides, then my card wouldn't open. Make sure I'm doing this right. And this particular paper has a direction, so I wanted to make sure that I didn't mess up. So I'm just adding adhesive to one side. Now with the card shut, so I'm holding this side down, I am going to center this like such. And I'm just going to hold that for a moment while that adheres. There's a little bit of a spring in this card because of the Z-fold, modified Z-fold. Okay, so there's that. So next, this would be our second mat. So we had our first mat right here, DSP, a second mat, and then the card front that our tree will be on. And I've set my, oh, there it is. Needed my grid paper because I'm going to do just a little bit of blending on here. I am going to use Evening Evergreen. Now, my original card, I used these gems, but I think I'm going to switch that to one of the other gems that we have available. I'm going to use my blending brush. I'm going to knock off the excess on the grid paper, and I'm just going to come in, and I don't need a ton of ink. I just want to create, oops, a little bit of a focal point. I think I messed that up. I'm just going to flip it over and do it again. So and just keep adding it until I feel like I have enough. Just creating a focal point, like a glow behind the tree, which I should put over here in your, can you see that? Kind of, sort of. So let's see, what can I tell you? I got my enhanced booster, and this is not a political conversation whatsoever. Got my enhanced COVID booster last Friday. Was supposed to get it midweek, ended up with it being on Friday because of a scheduling issue with the pharmacy. Anyway, I ran a fever for 2 days, and so today is actually the first day that I have much energy at all. And I am so glad to be here and so glad to be crafting, because with the fever, I was running a headache, or had a headache, and so I didn't do much this weekend. Did a little bit, but not much. Trying to make sure I don't have too blotchy. Excuse me, doesn't need to be perfect, but all right. Then I think I need a sip of water is what I think. I've already die cut my tree. Let me show you that. So in these dies, there's so many dies. There's a die for cutting out the garland that is, let me grab the stamp that's in this stamp right here. There are a couple of different tag dies. There's ornaments, there's bows, or there are dies for cutting out some of the stamped ornaments, etc. So these are more like detail dies. I haven't figured out what this is yet. There are these little dinky dots. Can you see that? I don't know what those are. There is 2 different baskets for your tree to sit in. There's a cutout for the basket if you stamp it. I am using this tree here that cuts out the whole tree. This die cuts out the tree from the stamp set, and then this die cuts out texture on this stamped tree. Does that make sense? So there's a ton of stuff. This is a really great value if you ask for my opinion. Anyway, so I've chosen the little tree and the little pot for it to stand in. I am going to apply those with, and by the way, all of these dies fit through the mini cut and emboss machine. If you have the big one, that's fine, but if you have the mini, this works. And if you don't have the mini, you should consider it because it really is a space saver. Okay, I am going to grab my dimensionals and put them on the back of my tree. And I know I'm using the big ones. Everybody has their opinion about whether or not that I should do that. I'm going to because that's what I like. Going to take off those backs. Okay, before I take off those backs, I'm going to put a dimensional. Well, let's see. Let me try this because, okay, I'm not going to put a dimensional on the pot. I did on this card, and I wasn't thrilled with how flat that was. I knew better. That was my own fault. So I am going to put the tree on. And then I will adhere the pot with adhesive, but I'll be able to scooch it up underneath in here. So I'm going to lower it a little bit. I felt like I had it just slightly too high on this card. So I'm going to lower it just a little. And I think I can do a better job of centering. That looks pretty good. Going to look at the details. Can you see that embossing that happened in that die cut? It's really pretty. I like it. It's kind of got a modern look to it. So just a little bit of adhesive. If I can get a hold of it. Now I'm going to move that pot up underneath in the center. And move it up just a little bit more. There we go. I'm liking that. Now, I am going to stamp and die cut, and I'll bring my mini over here so you can see what I'm doing. Oh, I was wondering, I had an extra piece of cardstock, but I'm supposed to have an extra piece of cardstock, so that made sense. What I'm looking for, there it is. I was looking for my scrap of cardstock to stamp my sentiment that's going to go on the front. And I am going to use Peace and Joy. So the colors that I'm using here are Real Red, Evening Evergreen. So Peace and Joy. I'm going to center this on my strip. I'm going to die cut around it, but I want to make sure that I'm not too high or too low. So it's a little crooked, and that's fine because I'm going to use a die, and I'm going to place my die. I can specifically place my die and tape it in place before I run it through my cut and emboss machine. Close up my ink for just a minute. And I had that die in my hand. Well, now I'm looking on the floor. There's a specific die that I was going to use for this. Oh, there it is. It was sitting on top of the stamp set and I just couldn't see it. All right. I am going to use Post-it tape I'm going to visually center this, and then I'm going to use Post-it tape to hold it in place while I run it through the cut and emboss machine. So that is looking not quite straight. All right, bringing over my mini. And just doing a quick cut. And if this is straight, then I used a really big piece of tape, way bigger than needed. There we go. Yes, so that looks good. Set this aside. We'll use that again on the next card. And I might just leave this tape right on that die so I don't lose it again. All right, bring this back over, bring this back over. And now I will place, I'm going to adhere this. One of the things I should be reminding you about is that Stampin' Up! Is having weekly deals right now through the month of September. They change over on Wednesday, I believe. this week they've got some really awesome stuff. They do every week, but this last week was, or this week is the one that I bought the most from. They had things that I would use on my Christmas cards. All right, so I've rematted, or I have matted that now. I am going to put 2 dimensionals on the back of my sentiment. Going to center my peace and joy. I think that's pretty centered. Now, I used the gems, the rhinestones here, but I think for this card, I'm going to use what is called the festive, oh man, what did they call these? The name on here does not match what it says online. I'm trying to remember. It's festive, like festive gems or festive pearls or festive basic pearls or something like that. Anyway, there's real red. This is soft succulent, silver, and gold. And I am going to use the red. My clay. I'm using the clay end of my Take Your Pick tool to pick up the gems. And I'm just going to put on however many I feel like I want. Oops, didn't pick that one up. Here we go. I rather like that. Let me see if I want one more up here or not. Nah, not really. I'm gonna take that off. Oops. Where did, oh, here it is. It's okay. I'm just move them just a hair. So anyway, I'm really glad to be feeling better after having my vaccines. I was glad to get it. We're going to be in some situations in the next few weeks where I felt like it was just better that I get my vaccine boosted. Got my flu shot too. That probably didn't help the situation. Okay, I am going to, I'm not sure if I like that better or not. I thought I did. They're really kind of dark, aren't they? I could still take them off and put the gems on. It's up to you. Pearls, the basic pearls would look pretty on here too. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to bite that bullet right now. I think I am going to bite that bullet. Let me take all these off. And I know this is probably appearing wasteful. Everybody does it their own way. This was a last second thought on my part. Actually, the gold balls would be pretty on here too, or the silver. I am going to grab my basic pearls. I like the luster of them. We have some iridescent pearls right now too. There we go. I like that contrast better than that, a little bit brighter. Please stick. That one, the backing wasn't on properly. And let's see, what else can I tell you about? We've got World Card Making Day is coming up. Yep, that's a thing. And Stampin' Up is hosting a, that's bigger, a free one-day event. You can find all of the details by going to stampinup.com. It's in the banner at the top. They do recommend that you register, and that's just so that they can give you updates. Okay, now that I have the pearls on there, I am going to, and I actually like that better than the last ones. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply this with dimensionals to this front. So I'm just giving it a little bit of a lift. Now, I'm adding enough dimensionals that this card would cost more to mail. If you don't want to do that, and I totally get that, you can use adhesive or glue to flatten everything down a bit so that it doesn't cost as much to mail. Or you can use the dimensionals for cards that you're handing out versus mailing. That's a thought too. Or if it's going in a package with gifts, then it wouldn't matter. You're gonna have to let me know which one you like better. Do you like the one with the pearls or the one with the red rhinestones? All right, so now we need to do the inside of the card. And get a few things out of the way. Bring this back over. So I'm going to stamp the sentiment and I'm going to stamp the decoration at the top of the card. So I'm going to start with the sentiment. I'm stamping that in Evening Evergreen. And I'm saying, sending Christmas cheer. So this is from, a lot of times I pull my sentiments from multiple stamp sets, but this is actually in the stamp set. So sending Christmas cheer, let's see if I can get that straight. I'm going to try one more time. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great. First one was better. We're going with that. Now I'm going to use Real Red, and I'm going to use the stamp that looks like garland, like beaded garland. And I'm kind of eyeballing my halfway point here. And about like, oh, I think I might have wiggled a little bit. Not, I really did mess that up. Let me grab another piece of paper. Looking to see if I've already got one cut. But I'm not seeing one cut, so I'm going to set this ink aside, bring up my paper trimmer real quick. Real life. Real life. I felt it wiggle a little bit. I suspected. So we're at 3 3/4 by 4. So 3 3/4. I think that was actually by 5. Yep, by 5. 3 3/4 by 5. Looking through my camera to see if you can even see. Not very well. Sorry, I don't have an adjustable camera stand. but it's on my Christmas list. All right, let's try this again. Clean off my stamp. Looking in the camera to make sure, I'm pulling it closer to me, but looking in the camera to make sure that you can still see. Okay, finding my middle-ish point. And my middle-ish point. There we go. So we just have a couple little garlands across the top, or somebody might call them curtains. This wasn't my favorite decoration to use on the inside of the card, but it wasn't, I mean, I've seen worse, right? Things that didn't jive me as much. I would have liked to have put a little, like stamped some greenery or something, but I would have had to pull that from another stamp set. So in the next card, you're going to see that I used a bow stamp on the inside, and that looks nice. I could have done that here too. Back to my evening evergreen and going to restamp that sentiment. And focusing hard on getting it straight. And I did, and that's great. Now, one little dinky trick to show you how to put this on the inside and get it straight. Just wiping off the ink off of my stamp. All right. So to get this centered in here so that it's hidden behind this, we are going to add adhesive. We are going to lay this It's a little hard because I wasn't thinking when I put my dimensionals on that tree. So this is all lined up now with the front mat, and I'm going to close my card. I'm going to flip it over and make sure it's really hidden, because remember, I have just a second to continue to scooch it. Doggone. There we go. She's in place now. Just like that. So what do you think? Do you like that card? And she sits up very nicely. It's one of the Z, this is a Z fold that I like because it does stand up. So that is mantle worthy. Whether you go with the gems or the pearls. I'm kind of thinking I like the gems better. I like the bright. Okay, I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to bring in card number 2. So here is card number 2. This one has a couple less layers to it, and a bit more stamping. So again, with the same base dimensions, this is 5.5 or 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 2 1/8, scored at 4 1/4. Set that aside, bring this over. And it folds the same as the previous card, so we're going to I'm sorry, I'm turning this over because I'm right-handed, and I will hold the bone folder in my right hand. And I'm just going to burnish that middle fold line, and then I'm going to fold back that separate panel and give that a nice little burnish. Okay. Now I have 3 pieces of designer series paper, and this is a really beautiful specialty paper. Can you see the glimmer in that? This is a foil specialty paper, so let me show you what that is. This is from the Festive Foils 12 by 12 Specialty Designer Series paper. There's 3 colors. There's this crushed curry with gold. There is this cherry cobbler, and you see the foil on there. And then there's soft succulent. Oh, there's 2 of each pages in there. So I'm using an evening evergreen base. I'm using the cherry cobbler from that foil. The dimensions of these, I knew I was going to forget this, are, and all of this will be updated on my blog. All of the cutting instructions will be on my blog. 5 1/4. I think this is by 1 7/8 are the first 2. So just adhering with adhesive. And you just center them on those first 2 panels. There's no up or down or sideways on this paper. So, and I meant to, it's too late now, so I'm not going to do it. But I noticed that when you cut this paper, there is a white edge. And a lot of times what I will do is I will go in with a sponge dauber, and I will take some of the ink that matches, and I will just run it along the edge like this, and it will cover up that ink, or cover up that white. But I forgot to do that, so I'm not gonna do it on the other 2 if I forgot to do it on the first one. So panel number 2. So so I told you that Stampin' Up! Was having an event for World Card Making Day. Before that was announced, I was already signed up to demonstrate for another World Card Making Day event with the Crafty Collaborators group. And I'm really excited about my presentation or my demonstration. The theme that we chose for our World Card Making Day is stamping diversity. And so that could mean just about anything, right? That could mean anything from adoption to multicultural marriages to, I'm sorry, I'm reaching here, to Star Wars fans. And in my case, I'm demonstrating and will be talking about the culture of quilting. And so I will make a card that looks like a quilt and has, and I will show some additional samples. And I'll do a little bit of talking about that. So I'm kind of excited about that. It's something I'm passionate about. I am not a quilter. I'll be very clear about that. My sister is and has made amazing, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful things for which I am grateful and am proud to own some of. All right, so we now have the base of our card set up. I'm going to stamp this card front. And I am going to use, well, like I said, I'm going to stamp. So the previous one was from one of the detailed dies. So this one is going to be a stamp. I'm using Evening Evergreen. And I am going to, ink up, and then I'm going to stamp it off before I stamp over here. I don't think I've got good coverage. There we go, now I do. So I'm going to stamp off, which is a beautiful tree, right? And I'm going to do a second stamp on my cardstock. There we go. I'm going to clean this off. There is a second tree stamp. Show you that. So here, and this is where you go and you add in your shadows. So this one I will not stamp off. I will use it full strength. And this one I actually found, well, probably because of the stamp or the block that I'm using, didn't find that I am really great at lining it up, but not bad. Not bad. And actually, you know what I did earlier is I did it twice. So I'm going to try one more time. It looks like I did it exactly the same. That's okay, because we're putting a sentiment on here. We're going to put some bows on here. Set that aside. Close this up. I am going to grab my early espresso and stamp the pot. Little dinky stamp. I'm going to show you. So that's basically what I'm doing right there. Ta-da! We now have a pot. Anyway, for the World Card Making Day that I'm participating in, last count, I believe I heard that we have 29 demonstrators. So it's going to be a very nice event. Okay, so the next thing I need to do you see those sparkly bows on there? Well, those are dies from this die set. And we're going to cut those. I'm going to bring back over my mini cut and emboss machine. Actually, before I do, I'm going to grab out the cardstock and just tape the dies down. They don't need to be specifically put in a specific location, but because I've already used this scrap, I didn't want it to slide off by accident. So I'm going to use a little piece of Post-it tape just to hold those in that general location. And I want to tell you about this paper. This is a really beautiful paper. That comes from this is the Glimmer 12 by 12 specialty paper. It comes in Evening Evergreen, Gold, and Very Vanilla. So here is the Evening Evergreen. Here is the Very Vanilla. I think you've seen me use this on a card when I was doing my catalog launch party. And then today was actually the first time I cut into the gold. Originally, I cut out the Very Vanilla for the bows, and they didn't work on this card. So I went with the gold, and now I'm really happy with it. So bring back over the cut and emboss machine. Oh, my dies came right off. Okay, that's all right. I might not have pressed the tape down. But I have now. I just need it to hold it for a second. And looking to see if you can even see what I'm doing. Now, as you can see by those dies, you can really do a beautiful stand-up gorgeous card. Oh, some of them already popped right out, which makes it easy. And only one looks like it's gonna need a little bit of love. Gonna use my, did it just fall out? It just fell out. Didn't even need my take your pick tool, but if it wouldn't have, I could have just pushed through that little hole right there and it would have popped right out. Put these back over. Okay, so now I just need to pop out that little center on each of the bows. There we go. So I was able to cut out 6 bows at one time because they have 2 sets of 3, which is really nice when you have all these little dinky things that to have multiples of it in the same set so that you can cut out faster. There we go. There's my 6 bows. And I need to just use my Post-it tape to pick up my debris. And look at that. My sample card and this card that I'm demonstrating, I was able to get out all of the bows out of a piece of scrap. It was 2 inches by 2, and I could have gone 2.5 inches. So that was nice to not feel wasteful. I'm going to bring my tree back over. Looking for all my little layers here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and adhere some of these bows. I am going to just apply a small dot of adhesive to the back, right in the middle. You could use a mini glue dot if you wanted to. I actually think this spot is a little small for even a mini glue dot. I'm trying to not over push my my adhesive here. So I'm going to put one up here near the top in the center. Not at the top, but near the top. That's my personal preference. And one down here. So I told you about the weekly deals. I've told you about the promotion where you can get these dies, but that is limited time. I'm going to adhere one more, and then I'm going to stamp my sentiment and get it die cut and placed on here before I add any more bows. So I'm gonna, whoops. Let me straighten that out. There we go. I've got a feeling I'm gonna add one more over here or something. But I'm gonna take care of that front sentiment first. And I'm going to switch from, so for the last card I used Peace and Joy. On this card I am going to use Happy Holidays, and the same die fits both of those sentiments. So Peace and Joy, oh wait, Oh, I've already got it mounted on another block. Okay, that works. I'm going to bring out my cherry cobbler, which I discovered a little while ago actually needs to be re-inked. So this might, I want to make sure I get it good and inky. There we go, I got good coverage. Another piece of Post-it tape. I'm just going to center this up. I think that's about straight. If I'd have been thinking, I would have had that stamped and ready when I die cut the bows. We're very close to done with this card. The glimmer paper makes it so I don't even have to add any gems to this. There's our happy holidays. I'm going to put a couple, actually, I'm going to adhere this first. I just realized I could have had that tree a little lower. Oh well. I'm going to adhere. Every card we make, we see something that we could improve on it, don't we? All right, I think I've got that pretty straight. Give that a squish. I'm going to put 2 dimensionals on the back of my sentiment. Going to place my sentiment through the middle of the tree. So I could raise it up a little bit and throw in one more bow here, or lower it and put maybe the top of a bow right there. I think that looks pretty straight. And see if I can add, yeah, perfect. I can add one more bow right there and that's going to look nice. Small dot of adhesive. And just kind of move that down in there. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, the only thing I would change is I wish I would have centered the tree. I didn't even, I did the same thing here as I did on the last one. Didn't even notice it on the last one. Okay, I am going to adhere this to the front, and again, like the last one, I'm only going to put adhesive on the back side of one panel, or on half of the back side of the panel. I am going to center this, so I have about the same distance of perimeter all the way around. Make sure it's straight. Whoops. Don't wiggle too much. Okay. There we go. All right. So that's centered. Now we just need to take care of the inside of the card. And for this one, I've used a different sentiment. I'm using May Your Season Be Merry and Bright. And I'm using 2 bows to decorate just the top of the card. So just like that. So I'm going to start with the cherry cobbler. And looks like I don't have my bow on. There it is. Cherry cobbler. A little bit light. If this one turns out light, I'll leave them, but if they turn out 2 different colors, then I'll flip the cardstock. I'm actually thinking that's acceptable. And then I am going to use the Evening Evergreen for the sentiment. And I think I need to change the sentiment. Yes, I do. So Evening Evergreen, making sure I've got good ink coverage. Hope that's straight. It is! Yay! So now we just need to adhere this to the inside of the card and we're done. So just like the last card, this one will be a little bit easier because I don't have all those dimensionals. I have a little bit, but not as much on the front. I'm going to put the adhesive on the back of my inner card. Now, one of the things that's nice about this one is the inner is a little bit smaller than the outer, whereas the other one, they were the same dimension. So I mentioned to you, these were 2 different fun folds. They just happened to be very similar. All right, so I'm centering that. I'm going to fold this over. And now when it's closed, it hides that inner message liner. What do you think? You like it? So there is that card. And then here is this card. Which one do you like better? I'm thinking I like this one better. I love this designer series paper, but I don't know, maybe I like this one. That might be the one that I end up photographing again. So there we are. Friends, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you giving me your time and allowing me to demonstrate what I love to you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Please be safe and stay healthy. Thank you. Hugs.